I think I go to cities and visit cities, but I feel more anonymous in a city. I feel like I belong in the Isle of Man.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner Sharon Sutton.
I'm really thrilled that agreeing to be my first guest and taking a leap of faith to come on as an island influencer is Bob Jeavons, well-known Isle of Man businessman and until recently the owner and chairman of Tynwald Mills. Don't forget to listen to the end of this podcast where Bob gives some great tips and motivation to other business owners and organisation leaders. So as you'll hear, Bob has done and is doing tons of other great stuff as a leading light of the Isle of Man business community, and he's someone I've admired for a very long time. He's founding director and current chairman of Manx BirdLife, with experience extensively in serving in the commercial, public and not-for-profit sectors. He's a trustee of several Isle of Man charities, including St John's Mill, which is where we hang out these days, and to which he brings expertise in fundraising, recruiting and volunteer relation skills. He's managed construction and restoration projects in both the commercial and charitable sectors and remains chairman of Isle of Man Third Sector Strategy Group. And he's also a member of the Police Advisory Board. So welcome to Bob Jeavons. So here we are, meeting in St John's Mill, which is obviously where we live and almost where you live, as a business. And I mean, it's thanks to you, Bob, being sort of the chair of the trustees that Thornton are based here. But maybe we can just talk about how we came to meet and tell me all about you and your life. How you got to here on the Isle of Man. I think that's a really lovely story.
Okay, well, it's really nice to be with you and see you in your office, remembering what this place was like. Around about the year 2000 when it was derelict and the roof was leaking, and I remember this room when it was the place where they used to store the old wool bales and sort the Manx wool clip. So it's very different now. It's very friendly and light, and you always get a warm welcome when you come through your door. There's eye contact as you come through and meet your lovely staff. And I suppose this building summarises some of the change that's taken place at Tynwald Mills over my working life. I'm 66 years old in a couple of weeks' time. And I first came in touch with the mill when I was 18. Wow! And did a student's job working as a PA to the managing director. He was a guy called John Waring, who had been born and bred in the wool trade and had retired to the Isle of Man.
Oh, I see. Right.
And he put together a group of people to try and save Tynwald Mills, which was in danger of having to close.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very interesting job. I got involved in doing some design, which I had no qualifications or experience in doing. One of the things we found was there was a warehouse full of old wool. In most businesses, you make mistakes from time to time. One of the problems with if you're weaving in those days, they used to dye the wool as well. So when you dye it, you have one chance to get the colour right that you want. If you get it wrong, you've got a second chance because you can't get the colour that you wanted, but you can always go very dark. You
right.
can make it, dark brown or black.
Yes.
If you get it wrong again, then basically there's not a lot you can do with it.
No.
So we found this warehouse that was full of all the mistakes of probably a whole generation.
All dark wool.
All dark wool. Mm. And we wondered what we were going to do with all this. So I checked what you could make it into, and basically all you could make it into was grey blankets.
Okay.
So that's what we did, because we hadn't got any orders.
No.
So we thought, well, we'll make some grey blankets. And it was a time of some of the troubles in Northern Ireland, and we used to sell to a company called Roberts and Ledley Ferguson. And it was a sad but slightly humorous situation, because we'd weave these grey blankets and ship them across to Northern Ireland. And then there were a number of prison riots, and we'd see them, the prison on fire or whatever was going on. Yes. Then the phone would ring about a week later and said, we need some more blankets.
Yeah, we just set fire to them all on the roof.
Yeah. And so that actually kept the business going initially. It was teetering on.
Oh my.
On the brink.
Yeah.
And we got a bit more ambitious, and we started to weave and design new rugs. I can tell the story that I used to keep my wife warm in bed 2 years before I met her. And that always causes a degree of confusion. But actually, one of the businesses that I sold blankets to, which were by that time they were very nice, beautiful coloured rugs, was Goldsmiths College in London, where she was studying.
Wow.
And when she came to the Isle of Man eventually to do an interview for an art job, she went back and she'd never noticed the label at all. But when she got back and she looked at her rug and she recognised this label and thought, what amazing coincidence. I've just offered a job in the Isle of Man. And
well, it's meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
So I came initially by circumstances to work here. And then when I was leaving university, the man I worked for was ill.
Right, okay.
And I originally came back for 6 months to hold the fort whilst he got better, and sadly he retired, and I suddenly found that whenever I was 22 years old, I was running the business.
But you'd done a degree that wasn't at all related to running a business.
No, that's right. I'd done it. My degree is in theology, which has remained an interest throughout my life, and how we relate our faith to the way we live our lives.
Which university were you at?
I was at Oxford.
Yeah.
I had 3 great years there, and came back to the Isle of Man, knowing not an awful lot about textiles. Realised that I needed to do something to be a bit better informed about the industry. So I went to the Scottish College of Textiles for a short course of about 6 weeks, which basically was little more than learning the language, and just making sure I understood how the industry worked and what all the technical words meant, and get an idea of how the whole system worked and how it all related to each other.
Sure. So how you found yourself in a textiles business was not really maybe related to how you thought your career would pan out when you chose to do your degree course.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lovely phrase, blossom where you're planted.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place where you begin, and then we have the opportunity to, through our lives, to shape and form what goes on around us to greater or lesser degree.
Yeah.
So my own view is that our generation can be very, very precious about the whole career scenario. The reality is that for most of human history, 99.9% of people who ever lived in the place where they were born, and they did the job that their father or mother did, by and large.
Yes.
And it's really only in the industrial age that we've had this extreme and increasing mobility and fluidity of labour, which has enormous advantages and opportunities. But it's good to remember that actually it's always more important about who we are than what we do.
Yes.
And I think we're too quick to ask the question about what you do, and actually not understand the person who you're engaging with.
Yeah, it's a sort of a Western developed economy type progress, isn't it? We give our kids so much freedom when they first grow up, and then we shoehorn them directly into an education system that makes them take exams, and then we ask them what they want to do, and then we send them to university, and then straight to working life without actually asking, I suppose, what else is there? What part of your life could be used towards something more creative? I don't know, but
and there's some interesting stuff coming out now, looking at the distinction between success and happiness, or wealth creation and happiness. And I think we're a society which is showing significant signs of stress.
I agree.
Yeah, the levels of emotional and physical illness caused by the way in which we're living and working should cause alarm. It feels in many ways that we've lost the balance. And I believe in hard work. I believe in being committed and doing the best job that you can. But I think it's how do we create the context where we can do that most effectively and healthily and sustainably, of course, today.
Yeah, and I suppose the Isle of Man being such a great community for that. It's since you've come back to the island and you ran Tynwald Mills, and over the years, how did that progress? Because it's not long ago that you sold it to Edinburgh Woolen Mills, which I think we're all quite excited about for the island community having a large conglomerate coming in and that sort of thing. How did it progress from the woolen mill to the retail? How did that sort of transition over time?
I mean, it'd be nice if I could say I planned it, but it wouldn't be true. And if I said it was all me, well, that also wouldn't be true. Any organisation really should be a composite of the people who are there and doing the work. And I'm very fortunate. I've worked with some extraordinary people at all levels of the organisation over nearly 50 years. The initial task was, how do we survive as a mill? And I think I was very, very naive. A lot of energy and enthusiasm, but not much intelligence.
Surely not. With an Oxford degree, you don't just hand that out.
Yes, but you can work in a business or you can work on a business. The distinction I'm making,
yes, of course,
is when it's on fire, you have little choice but to work in it. Because if you can't get the next order, the machines stop, and you've got to lay people off, and those sort of things happened. And so you feel a huge responsibility to just go out and make it happen. Improve the design, improve the quality, improve the production. So we went from making about 10 rolls a week of fabric, and I think at our peak we were making nearly 100 rolls of fabric a week. That's about 6,000 meters of fabric a week.
Wow.
And that's a lot of fabric to sell.
It is, yes.
And we were selling it, all around the world, particularly America and Germany, Japan, a lot to the UK. We were supplying Marks and Spencers and Burton's and Dunn's stores in those days.
I had no idea you did stuff like that. Wow.
Yeah. So, having built it up as a viable producing mill, we had to focus on what we did well, which was basically we concentrated on weaving and finishing fabric. So we stopped dyeing and spinning very early on, and we did what we were good at. But I think why I say, if I'd been working on the business, I would have seen the changes coming faster than I did. I think one of the things that's happened over the last 50 years of business life is recognizing that the pace of change is accelerating, not decreasing.
Yeah.
And so you've got to find this balancing point. If you wait too long to make the innovative changes, you're too late, and everybody else has done it, and you've lost your market.
Yeah.
You've lost any market advantage. The earlier you take it in the process, the more mistakes you'll make, and the greater the risks involved in doing it. So there's a risk-reward balance going on there all the time. And the industry I was in was really needing very heavy capital investment in machinery. It needed to work harder, which was in the UK. They were going on to 3 shifts in many of the mills. There was migrant labour coming in who were prepared to work in the Isle of Man would be seen as antisocial hours.
Yeah.
And so our ability, and the electricity price on the island were at those days were more than twice the price of our competitors in the UK. Then you had the cost of transport.
Shipping.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we built it up, but actually there were some fundamentals. And then when the government changed policy about tariffs, and suddenly imports were coming in, and we had to compete with cheaper imports, the writing was on the wall. And we diversified. We used some of the old space for the areas we'd closed down, and we began developing a tourist business.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, 1979 was Millennium Year, so that was a few years after I came back from university in 77. So it was pretty well. And 79 was the peak of the if you like, of the tourist. The Isle of Man had between 500,000 and 600,000 tourists a year for the best part of a century.
Yes.
So that become, there's an expectation that if it's got something that's been going on for that long, you think it's never going to be any different.
No, that's right.
Yeah. And somebody will probably check out these numbers and tell me I'm wrong, but from around about, I think Millennium Year was like 550,000 people visited the island in 1979.
Gosh.
By the end of the 80s, so 10 years later, it was down to about 130,000.
Mm-hmm. Either coming for TT or going to Spain for sunshine.
Yeah, and the whole world, the world had changed in a decade. So we diversified in that 10-year period into having a glassworks and perfume makers and a pottery and screen printing and cosmetics and all of these little craft industries creating, which actually were some really good companies and doing some really good things. But
before its time, really.
It needed a lot more people to sustain it.
Yeah. Okay.
So having started to build the infrastructure to sustain all of that, we had to move again, which meant that we had to stop. If you're selling to tourists, you can basically sell the same thing week after week after week, because your customer is changing every week.
Yeah.
So the need to innovate and bring new products in is fairly limited. Once you start selling to a local market, which is what we had to do, then the whole structure of buying and selling had to change.
Sure.
And I hadn't got much expertise in retail, but I employed people who had, and they then, of course, played a huge part in the development of the business.
Yeah, sure.
And so we became one of the island's largest clothing stores, and
it remains
beyond.
the only place really to go shopping outside of Douglas for retail. People in Ramsey would obviously disagree, but it's where you come if you want anything special, really, if you're looking to buy something.
Yeah, and I think the vision was always to be more than just a place to shop. I think we wanted to encourage local businesses to start up, and dozens of local businesses began their life here.
Yes,
some of them lived and died here. Others flourished and moved on, or flourished here.
And there's still some new ones starting now.
Still, absolutely,
great local new ones started. Here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting my haircut at Drury's on a regular basis, and brilliant company.
Yeah. The tailors are rather good too.
Noble suitors.
Mark.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Mark. Yeah. So it's wonderful to see these talented young people coming, and obviously I've no control or influence over what happens in the future. But I think that's part of what Tynwald Mills has been historically. And
it's a community.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that whole concept of what community is needs to be retained within business on the Isle of Man.
It does, and actually you've covered that really beautifully in saying how you need to be adaptive constantly and see what's coming. And it's a great lesson for any business owner. We found that ourselves. We've adapted over the years too, and you have to, because you have external influences. But you also have disruptive technology. You have community issues, things change, trade policies and what have you. So thank you for covering that. That's amazing.
Okay.
If we're to move on to things you've done throughout your life that's outside of business that's made you proud, because I can tell you've been immensely proud of what you've achieved throughout Tynwald Mills.
What the team there have achieved, rather than me personally.
Well, absolutely, that's and rightly so. But what other things have you done that have made you fulfilled? Perhaps talked about happiness and health. Fulfillment is probably a good word to use. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose family comes first, doesn't it?
Yes.
Family and faith for me.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I've been enormously blessed. We celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary this
congratulations.
This year. Not quite there yet.
Yeah.
and actually today, and we're quite anxious because our fifth grandchild will be arriving today.
Oh my.
I had a phone call from my son this morning saying they were at the hospital.
Oh wow!
So it's happening.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's happening.
If you get a phone call, I'll finally take it.
I might get a text.
Yeah.
Yeah. So family is really, really important. Mm-hmm. I think if I'm talking about my own life, and sometimes it's hard to share the things that really make the difference, where you change direction. We all have choices to make, and there are things. Around about age 50, I felt that there were things that I could do better outside the business world. I think I had things to offer.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do that as a dramatic thing. Initially, what I felt I needed was, and it was quite hard because at the time I was running a business, I was involved in a lot of other things, and I had a young family. And the one thing I hadn't got was time.
So important.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't got enough of, right?
Yeah. I hadn't got, yeah. It was. Yeah. And so I made a decision that I was going to take a week out every year and go do something totally different. I did some interesting projects with a friend of mine from London, and we visited various countries. And
wow.
What I found, I guess, was that I was getting more fulfillment out of the things that I was doing voluntarily than I was out of
being paid for it.
Yeah, the processes of making money and just the commercial world. I can act commercially.
Yes,
but I have concerns as well. I think the culture of the commercial world is changing, and I think that's one of the sad things about the last 50 years. If I can take you back to my early days, we used to buy wool in the Bradford wool market, and of course we didn't go to buy it physically. We bought it through an agent. Mm-hmm. And so they'd send you a sample. It's kind of like a Christmas cracker, and you'd look at it, and you'd look at the quality of the wool, and you'd talk to them about the price, and you'd tell them what you're prepared to pay. And that's the start of making anything out of wool. You've got to buy the raw material. It was done really in a very trust-based culture. That he'd send you a sample, and you say you know what you're buying. He's got to deliver what he sent you. You fix the price, and normally it'd be a phone discussion. You'd say, okay, go and bid for that. And the paperwork was minimal.
Yes, but now.
But now, and it worked really on reputation and trust.
Yes, of course.
Hey,
I work in financial services. You don't need to tell me about confidence and trust in a sector.
Yeah.
It's
So
sure.
I think rules and regulations and laws fulfill a purpose, but they largely constrain bad behaviour.
They do.
And I suppose if I have to sort of characterise why did I want to make that change, is that I come to believe very early on in my life that actually, if you can get the core values right, you don't actually need to be so prescriptive and restrictive. And I think that comes from people living, when we talk about smaller communities, I think in a small community, if you behave irresponsibly and take advantage of other people, or abuse their goodwill, or don't keep your word, then actually that's spotted very quickly.
It sure is.
And you become affected by the consequences of what you're doing.
Less accountability in a larger place.
The more distant it is, when it's just another number on a screen, or another name,
or another social media account.
You're never going to meet. You're never going to talk to them.
Yeah, sure.
And we then move into a situation where it becomes much more competitive. And I think some of the things that are happening are toxic. That they are
it's anti-social media as opposed to social media, isn't it? Lots of anonymous accounts.
The news this morning. I mean, it's probably a bit sensitive for the Isle of Man, but news this morning about whether people should be able to gamble on a credit card.
Yes, that's right. They're trying to stop that, aren't they?
Yeah. You're gambling money that's not even yours.
Yes.
And so I think it's those sort of things where you can see that this profound social harm is taking place. And there could be many others, and I don't want to single out any one industry. I mean,
it manifests in we're all human. At the end of the day, there's good and bad and everything.
Yeah. So how do we actually balance that? How do we balance the two? I think generally it's balanced between the individual and the community, and I think people actually are happier and more fulfilled when they work in relationship with others and are accountable to other people. And so I think it starts with the family. And that's why one of the charities that we're involved in starting here at the Mill was Care for the Family. Yes, because we believe that families are a really important element of the building block of life. It's been the first thing I said
nodding
about
away here, but it's a podcast.
Yeah, family. Family is very my top priority.
Yes,
I don't always get it right, but I've tried to be a good husband and good dad.
Yeah. And constant balancing act, isn't it? To do the right thing in the right context of constraints that are in a community and in social things generally, really. Yeah. So how do we keep that balance between creative individualism? We're in an age of the iPad and the iPhone, and I just think the I emphasis has got too strong. From my theological background, it talks about people being a body with Christ as a head, that each one has a part to play, and that they have different gifts. And actually, it's profound because it doesn't give a hierarchy. The hand is not better than the foot. Each part has a particular purpose. And if you work in any organisation together, you realise that people have different skills. We used to say at Tynwald Mills, if the dishwasher goes off or is ill, that's almost one of the biggest crises that can hit the organisation. No, I agree. Yeah.
When you've got 500 crocs to wash, it's in an hour. It's sort of, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. So I think we do need to recognise that everybody within our society, everybody has gifts, everybody has abilities, everybody has worth and value, and actually we all start off at the same level, and we all finish in the same position.
Yeah, we do.
And how we travel between those 2 points is a moral, ethical, spiritual question, which has exercised me much over the last years.
Yep, you and me both. So I suppose we've covered it really, but the best thing about living in the Isle of Man, it's got to be that it is small, compact, and you have that degree of accountability to each other, and more visibility.
Yeah.
Is there any,
Yeah, I think absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think I go to cities and visit cities, but I feel more anonymous in a city. I feel like I belong in the Isle of Man. And that's because of history and that sense of you're engaged at various levels with various people, and this is the place where you're meant to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps that it's absolutely, a wonderful, beautiful place. And if you...
and there's no horizontal rain.
I wish. And things that I enjoy doing, particularly walking and getting out in the fresh air and enjoying the Manx countryside.
Yes.
I mean, I've been to
I
lots
met you
of
just this morning. You were heading off up the river, weren't you?
I walked up to see the waterfall this morning. So, I mean, that's a huge privilege. We can walk out of our door and there's some spectacular walks within walking distance, literally.
Yeah.
So
I don't miss driving past hundreds of cars in the morning on my way to the office.
Yeah.
At all. Stop calling it work. I call it the office now.
Yeah. So I think if I had to summarize, I'd say it's the 3 Ps: people, place, and the third one would be purpose. I think. Right. In a smaller organisation and a smaller place, you can feel that you have a part, you have a meaning, you have a reason, you have a responsibility. Okay. And it's that purpose which gives you a sense of I'm in the right place. Yeah.
That's really good. I like that. I really like that. So, what would you say the main challenges are then that the Isle of Man faces?
I knew you were going to ask me this.
Yeah. Well, we have...
Chief, it's like being Chief Minister for half an hour.
Well, if you were Chief Minister, what would you do? It's probably the best thing to ask you, isn't it? But, what do you think the main challenges are that we face?
Well, we touched on some of them already. Yeah. I mean, I think some of them are very obvious, and we probably won't spend a lot of time talking about those because others know a lot more about it than I do. I think the environmental... one is clearly a high priority. Yeah, the biosphere status has got to be fantastic for that, hasn't it? It's UNESCO? Great, but it's got to be more than a label. Yeah, it's got to do what it says on the tin. Yes, and we've got to really engage. And I think praise the government for doing it, getting it as far as we have. But if you say, have we got there? I think we're just scratching the surface. I think there's a whole lot more that we need to do. So I think the Isle of Man, you could say that actually whatever we do is irrelevant to the global situation. And I think that is a profound mistake. If you look at so many people who've influenced, good thinking and good ideas are contagious. I believe the Isle of Man has a wonderful opportunity with this biosphere accreditation to set itself out as a shop window for the world, a place that people would want to come and see what we're doing here. And we've talked about values before, really sow those values into every aspect of our society. Sure. And begin to bring about a transformation that would actually be a challenge to every other nation of the world. If we can do it on the Isle of Man, why can't you do it? Mm-hmm. And I've learned so much from just watching and seeing other people doing things well. Mm-hmm. And I think we should not be ashamed of adopting good ideas and good practice. No. So, do you think that government, they do a certain amount of things already? You've got your Visit Isle of Man, and you've got inward migration. I don't know what you think, but it seems to me that private sector will always should lead the way and be able to regulate and the government's behind it. Government's got a problem in that it's being asked to do so much. Yeah, and it seems to be spread mile wide, inch deep, as opposed to focusing. I think that's, and I don't blame them for that. It's the way it's grown. But I think that's part of the challenge that the Isle of Man is facing. I think there's a huge potential within the third sector, and I think there's an opportunity for government to focus more on quality than quantity. Yeah. And I think making government smaller. I mean, I would like to see real clarity about what the statutory responsibilities of government are, because I think from what I hear from on the street is the things that really concern people are, first of all, the environment at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think health is really important, education and social care, and which I think health and that sort of health, social care are really just two sides of the same. Yeah, I mean, if the social care is not right, you've got a health problem. Yes, and other social problems as well. I think if we could begin to focus down on what government really has to do, infrastructure would be the other one. I mean, I think things have to work. Those would be the things that I would see as being, and obviously the administrative function that holds all that together. But I think there's lots of things around the edges that could be enhanced by a migration. And I'm not talking about revolution. I think a migration away from government to allow government to focus on the things that government has to do and to empower others. Now, I think that needs different. When I say third sector, I think we're looking at new forms of doing things.
More voluntary type aspects of doing roles.
Can be charity. It can be charity, but it can also be commercial to the extent that the organisations can be profit generating. But
not
using,
for loss,
using profit in different.
Not for profit. Do you mean not for profit as opposed to not for loss?
I think you can have both. You can have not for profits, but you can also. So if you take the stuff that was done in India with the Grameen Bank, where they were empowering groups of women to buy their own raw materials in order that they could actually work together, and they made whole clusters of people accountable through a social enterprise. And it meant that if the group failed to pay back the loans, that the individual failed to pay back the loan, the debt fell on the group.
Right. Personal accountability
that was commercially viable. It's been profitable. It's generated money, which has been allowing it to grow. So I think actually, I'm going to the British Irish Council in Birmingham in a couple of weeks' time with a group from government looking at social enterprises.
Wow. Okay.
And I think social enterprises provide an opportunity to think on a broader number of values than purely the profit and loss. Businesses need to be sustainable, and that requires them to be efficient and to be profitable. But what we do with that profit and how we care for the different stakeholders, it's not just about the shareholders, it's about the employees, it's also about the customer and also the suppliers. Businesses are, as you know yourself, are a network of different people. And you'll have skills within Thornton's that are very advanced and developed, but you'll have specialist skills outside that you need to draw on to raise you to the next level. So all of that, and they're all part of the equation. So, I mean, the corporate structure, and I'm not a lawyer, and I really need help from a lawyer who could actually help me through this process, but I know that there is an opportunity to construct corporate structures that actually are more balanced.
Yeah.
And
got to be another way.
Yes. And so reward has to be proportionate.
There are some interesting structures, actually. I think John Lewis in the UK operates under, I think it's an enterprise ownership trust.
Yes.
That's quite interesting, where it's employees do actually have both a say in the company and an annual. Well, they were having an annual bonus. I mean, they're having as all clothing retailers are at the moment. Yeah, they're put their hands in the back pocket at the moment.
Yeah, there's real challenges for many clothing businesses at the moment.
Sure.
Not for the first time.
No, no. Well, okay.
So I think
that sounds like a real opportunity for us to maybe explore, and I mean it is a thing in the UK already, the enterprise ownership trust, but whether or not we could have a different strand of that, our own interpretation is. Yeah,
and I think not to be frightened of being different. To actually, we talked about values early on, to do more work as a nation, just focusing what are our values, what are the things we actually believe as a group of people, and how do we take those values and those distinctives and actually make them informative of all the structures and the organisations and the businesses that we welcome at host, so that actually we all feel that there is an integrity. What that does is it amplifies the voice of the Isle of Man, so that actually when people think about the Isle of Man, it would be wonderful if they weren't thinking about tax haven, motorbike racing, declining tourist centre.
Yes.
I think that it's much more than that, and I'm not being critical. The Isle of Man is a diverse economy. There's a lot of creativity. There's some very entrepreneurial businesses and some great businesses on the Isle of Man.
It's a great place to bring up kids, right?
Doing amazing things.
Yeah, sure.
But if there's a greater sense of coherence, I think that we would punch above our weight, because we are only 85,000 people. We're the size of a small town in England.
Yeah.
And if you take back to the retail analogy, we don't want to be necessarily try and be doing everything, but we want to do some things extraordinarily well. And the more those things coalesce, so you might think, if you think about Denmark, you'd associate it perhaps with great design and furniture. If you think for Switzerland, great engineering and precision watches and so on. Relatively small nations, actually, you can create very positive associations. And I think we need to try and find out what that is. Our national anthem talks about the gem of God's earth. You can't have a better vision statement than that, can you?
No, not really. No. Yes, we've got a lot of opportunities to explore, haven't we? So, what have you got planned next? You mentioned that you were going away with this this government initiative.
Yeah, social. I mean, looking at how we structure businesses and how businesses work to serve the community and share the benefits. I'm really interested in. I've got 3 or 4 books that I picked up from Blackwell's in Oxford the other day.
Right.
And I'm 3/4 way through my first one, so I'm learning.
Yeah. Lifelong learning.
Yeah, keep learning. Grandchildren, yeah. So that's family and grandchildren. That's still a priority. Really interesting project I'm doing with Manx BirdLife. I've been chairman of Manx BirdLife since its inception, and we've recently signed a lease on the worked out gravel pits in the north of the island. So there's over 100 acres of worked out gravel pits at the Point of Ayre. And we're working with the RSPB and the government and Island Aggregates, of course, who own the land.
Right.
And the plan is to create an international standard nature reserve.
Wow.
And the Point of Ayre, and that's really exciting. There's a whole lot of design and environmental analysis and fundraising, and finding some volunteers and getting a stronger team of people.
Oh, I don't doubt it'll be off the ground before you know it.
Yeah. And the plan is that Island Aggregates, as they continue to extract, as they will do, in the island's strategic resource of sand and gravel is the Point of Ayre, but their remaining land holding that they're still either is to be developed or they're working on is over 300 acres. So there could be a 400 or 500 acre national reserve there, within
that'd be amazing.
Within 30 years.
Yeah, sure.
So I will never see that. And I think that's part of what I.
You may well, if people are living to 100. We're talking about longevity a lot with most of our clients.
Well, it'd be wonderful, but the thing, actually, the reason to do it is not about whether I see it or not.
No, it's investing for your children and your grandchildren and the future.
There's a lovely story. It may be apocryphal, but it's looking at the building of St Paul's Cathedral. Of course, the architect was Sir Christopher Wren.
Yes.
And the story goes that he was walking through the stone yard one day, and it was a hand process of building the individual blocks that are going to build the cathedral.
Yes.
And probably all the people working on it were never going to see it finished.
Well, not all of them, but most of them.
Yeah, because it took more than a lifetime to build it.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So you talk to one guy, and what are you doing? And he said, I'm carving this particular piece, and this is how you do it, and so on. And he saw the function of what he was doing. And he went on and he talked to another stonemason, and he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm building this wonderful building for Sir Christopher Wren. He's the architect. And he appreciated that it was more than just the stone that he was carving. There was a bigger thing than that. And he went to a third and was talking about it. And he said, what are you doing? He says, I'm building a house for the glory of God.
Wow.
And they're doing exactly the same task.
And their perception
but their mental understanding of what they're doing was completely different.
Isn't that funny?
And I think that's empowering for the individual. It gives them job satisfaction. They're not going to cut any corners unless they want to cut off. They're doing it with a different dimension to their thinking. And if we could all discover something of that about our workplace, the Isle of Man would be a different place.
Wouldn't it just? That's really very quite profound. I guess. I mean, I've got as a question for any aspiring business owner, what would be your number one business tip?
I thought about this, and it's. Can I answer? Can I answer with a story, with a visual picture rather than a?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I would say build a great train. Okay. Right. So, what I mean about that, of course, this is an ecological train, so it's probably electric, and the electricity has come from renewable sources.
Okay.
But the train is made up of 3 parts. You've got an engine at the front, which is generating the power and the direction. Then you've got your carriages, and this is actually a mail train. not male as in male and female, but male in terms of post letter.
Okay, got it. Yep. Okay.
And the people are there busy sorting things out. And it's got to be ready to deliver. But it's a wonderful working environment. They've got good windows in the middle part of the train, and the light is shining in, and they're good friends, and they're working together as teams, and they're doing a job that's really, really purposeful. And at the back, you've got the brake van. And there's a couple of guys in there who are making sure that if anything goes wrong, that they can control the train.
Right.
So as we're building our business, we need to have a really good engine, and it's got the power there. It's got direction. It knows where it's going. It knows its destination, and it's driving forward. It's embracing the latest technology and steaming ahead. In the middle, you've got a great working environment where people really matter. They're well trained. They're working together, and they're fulfilling. They're getting all the bits in the right slots in the letter racks. They know
lots of happy clients.
They know where it belongs, and they're doing it right. And they, by and large, are like the passengers. They need the people who are driving the engine to be doing a really good job, moving it forward. But there's also the brake van. Now, with anything that we do, there'll always be the innovators, the ones with a great drive and imagination. There'll be those who actually are in the middle doing the necessary functions that make the whole thing happen. And you've also got the people in the brake van who are perhaps those who are a bit more resistant to change. They can often feel quite marginalised. And I think actually it's healthy in any organisation to have people who challenge. And I think they need to be listened to. I think there is also the danger that they put the brakes on and slow everything down, but they play an important part. So as you build your great new business here at Thornton's, that's an image that you can take away with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that you've got the power and the vision. You've got your destination. You know where you're going. You're the engine. You've got some great people doing the sorting in the mail trucks, and hopefully you're listening to others who've words of wisdom and caution.
We definitely have the brake van. It's called regulation and compliance. Yeah, no, it's a really good analogy. So, yeah, I mean, to have your business in balance is a very good tip for any aspiring or an existing business owner, indeed, as I am. And having those, I guess, 4 pillars of the business, so that you've got your business owner, I suppose, who's there because they've got this fire in the belly that they wanted to do this. They're making a profit because a business has to be profitable, I guess, but it also has to have happy clients in order to be profitable.
Yeah.
But it has to have a really great team to support them, otherwise you've got no business. So it's quite profound in all those aspects. It covers those. Yeah. Okay.
And of course, the challenge is always the reality rarely looks exactly like like what your aspiration and your vision. But the vision is important. So you keep on casting the vision.
Well, yeah, especially if the track has got some sort of blockage up ahead.
And keep on encouraging. You're doing a great job, Sharon.
Well, thank you for being such an easy guest to interview. I mean, goodness me, I could hardly get a word in.
Sorry. People say I'm normally very quiet.
I know, but if it's worth listening to, you've got so many good things to say. It's it's fascinating, and to still be pushing ahead, having built up a successful business and transitioned into the next part of a journey that's going to take you to all these exciting things. Still working on government projects and doing bird sanctuaries, and you've still got your SUMT.
Yes, I do that as well.
Mission that
working with Christians
Christian Union
Ministries Trust.
That's it, yeah.
So they're working in schools. We've got about 300 volunteers on the island who give their time to go in and work with the kids. Yeah. And they're young and enthusiastic, and again they're teaching people about values. Yeah,
I remember my son coming home and saying, "Mum, I've been to Russian Abbey on a trip with the school today." Yeah, I knew you were going. They've got monks, and the monks were all from Scripture Union.
Yeah, they were
teaching them how to do all sorts of things.
And I've done the job.
Okay, you make a really good monk. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's anything else we could discuss whilst we're here. Is there anything that there isn't? I haven't really covered that you wanted to say. I mean,
I think there is actually. There's one thing. I think we talked about the opportunities for the Isle of Man.
Yeah. Okay.
And
what more opportunities are there for the Isle of Man?
Well, I think the one that I've always felt we don't make the most of is one of the other things I'm interested in is gardening, and I'm not a very good gardener, but I do enjoy the challenges of making things grow or not grow. Yeah. And I get it wrong more often than I get it right.
Okay.
But what it teaches you is actually it's getting a whole combination of things. The right planting the right seed in the right material at the right time in the right place and the right conditions, and remembering to water it and or not overwater it and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So I think the Isle of Man has a unique opportunity because we legislate. It's a unique capacity that nobody else has in the same way that we do.
No.
I think there's a real opportunity for the island to create a faster legislative process in order to facilitate the growth of new ideas. We talk about things moving faster. Mm-hmm. So I think we should see ourselves almost like a greenhouse, that we could be an embryo for great ideas starting, providing appropriate and proper legislation to help the birth of new ideas. It probably would need us to increase our ties with the universities in England, or a university.
Yeah, absolutely, as more of a satellite centre. Yeah.
And be more intentional about getting the brightest of our young people to come back to the island after
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I think the greatest one of the greatest sadnesses of the older generation, of course, is that so many of our children are
absolutely
at a distance.
Well,
they might end up feeling the same all the time, but I think having provided fantastic education in the schools on the Isle of Man, producing these really able children that cost the Manx taxpayer a lot of money to equip, they go away and don't necessarily come back.
And that's not new. That's been happening for 50 years at least since. My husband's generation. He's very few of his generation came back to the island. Same with me.
Yeah,
I left Ramsey Grammar School in 1984. Yeah, and most of my contemporaries from the upper sixth, they all went to university. I didn't. And most of them have never come back, and it's sad that there's such talented people now, but there's so much to offer. Yeah,
but as the island develops and casts its vision and differentiates itself from other places in the world, creates an environment for creativity and innovation, provides a resource of a beautiful place to live and a political structure which can have legislation which acts as the brake van, but also allows the engine to function. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes business is changing now. It's far more intellectual. The Isle of Man has the capacity to birth many world leading initiatives, given the right encouragement and the right platform to do it on. And it's how do we build that platform? The ideas are not going to need us to build huge industrial estates normally. It could be as simple as somebody sitting in a purpose-built office at the back of the garden.
Yes.
Just that's where the thinking and the creativity, and a lot of it's happening in the sort of the post-university, post-masters, the next 5-10 years. This huge creative potential because they're seeing the world in a different way. The way we're seeing it, we need to welcome anybody who's in that age group. We've got to get the demographics are a problem for us, so we've got to get the demographics balanced up. Let's get these young people back. There's a whole piece of work to do to look at how that might happen, but it's a huge win for the Isle of Man. It'd be a great place for us. It'd be a blessing to the Isle of Man, and actually that blessing could go way beyond our shores.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, thank you so much. That's been an amazing conversation to have. You've got oodles of ideas there, and
that's always nice talking to you, Sharon. Thanks for the tea.
You can get to drink. All right. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Island Influencers from Thornton Chartered Financial Planners. To find out more and for useful links, visit thorntonfs.com/podcasts.